For beginners, I would say go with a friend. The reason why I would say go with a friend is it's going to be a bit nervous for you going to a new club. So if there's two of you, you feel a little bit more comfortable going with a friend, and hopefully you both catch the bug and you have a healthy rivalry with each other, because you'll be pushing each other when you're going to the club. There might be days where you don't want to go. The other point is, make sure you do your research before you go to a club. Most clubs now have social media access where you can see pictures of their clubs. Ask the club about their lineage. They'll give you like who promoted them, who promoted their instructor. And make sure you make a good choice, because you don't want to give your hard-earned cash to fake martial artists. Other point is, Jiu-Jitsu is a very tough sport. It's you have to think. There is a lot of benefits. It will make you healthy, but you will come with some injuries as well. You might get like things like cauliflower ears and like fingers like this one. There is injuries involved, but it's like a diamond, you know. A rock has to go through a lot of pressure before it becomes a diamond. Same with Jiu-Jitsu. You have to go through a lot of stretching and a lot of damage before you actually become a really good athlete and a fighter as well. After a while, your game will evolve around your style and your body. You might use your hands a lot. You might use a lot of pushing in your game. You might like to fight more on top. You might like to fight more on your back and use your legs. So Jiu-Jitsu is very open. For guys that are currently in Jiu-Jitsu, I always ask this question with guys who have been training for like 6 months, 7 months. I always ask them, how are you feeling, how do you like the sport? You've been there for a while. They always go, yeah, I love it, but I can't tap no one. I'm getting smashed week in, week out. I say to them every single time, I go, bro, when I started here at my club, I was the only white belt. There was like purples, browns and blacks. I didn't tap anyone for 2 years, but in those 2 years, when someone new did come eventually after 2 years, I was able to destroy him. In those 2 years, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of defenses, because I thought I knew stuff watching from like UFC back in the day. I thought I could hold my own, but reality was I couldn't do nothing. I'm a heavyweight and I was getting beaten up by like flyweight guys. You're gonna get smashed for those good few years. But if you ever rolled after like a year, I would say 5 months, after you rolled after 5 months, you can beat most guys that have never trained, but you're just going to get smashed. You're going to get smashed, expect it, you're going to lose, but it's only going to make you a better athlete, and it actually makes you tougher as well. It just makes your brain work more active, because you start thinking more, you start being more relaxed in a bad situation, because you're going to be in a situation where a guy's putting his elbow in your face and putting his knee on your tummy, and they're really uncomfortable positions. But eventually you're going to calm down, you're going to figure out when they're doing this how to escape, and then how to get on top, and then once you're on top, you're going to learn how to implement your attacks. Again, like I said, it makes you mentally tough. There have been people that have come who have depression and whatnot, but training Jiu-Jitsu help relieve them, because again, it was the struggles they had in Jiu-Jitsu, and they were able to overcome them. They were able to overcome a lot of things in life as well, because the fact that they realised there is always a way out of something. And I hope people that do take up Jiu-Jitsu who have things like depression do find the joys of the art and the lifestyle it gives. And the last thing I would like to say about training Jiu-Jitsu is have fun. You're going to make a lot of friends when you start your Jiu-Jitsu journey. Don't be afraid to ask the higher belts to train with. They'll give you a lot of free tips and advice. It's like a private lesson every time you're rolling with. Go with the purples, brown belts, black belts. Black belts are chilled. They've been there, done that. They've been on that same journey that you're going to start. So don't be afraid to ask them for any tips and advice.
One of the reasons for that is because it can be so overwhelming for a beginner coming into the sport, because there is so much to learn. And people can get overwhelmed and think, you know what, let me just perhaps pick this back up at a later time, and that later time never comes. I think one good thing to do to prevent that and just to continually remind yourself is an honest assessment of why you want to train BJJ. You have to, know those reasons. Is it because of self-defense? Is it because of fitness? Is it because um, of skill development? Is it because you want to compete? What are the reasons for training BJJ? And when you start feeling burnt out, when those thoughts of quitting start going into your head, you have to go back to those honest reasons. Unfortunately, this is a point at which some people fall because their why isn't good enough. So you have to have some good uh, internal reasons for starting BJJ, that not external factors like validation and that sort of thing, but internal factors. And hopefully those factors are things that people can find that they love about the sport. They might love that there's so much to learn. They might love the heat of the battle when it comes to sparring. And so you need to go back to those reasons and you remind yourself of why you started. Similar to that, I'd say is managing your ego. Like people with a bit too big of an ego can come in and again feel overwhelmed that all these people, perhaps smaller and weaker than them, are coming and taking them out. And so you really need to humble yourself. You really need to be a student of the game, and that involves managing your ego, not eliminating your ego. Absolutely, we need it. We need it to be competitive, but the ego needs to be managed. Too much too soon. Some people, dive into it and think, "Oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm going to do it as much as possible." They come 3, 4, 5 times a week, and it's not sustainable. So set a sustainable pace. Don't go absolutely balls to the wall to begin with. Set a manageable pace that you can keep consistent for the long term. The long term being at least a year. So don't do too much too soon. Um, Another reason is perhaps a toxic or not so much of a positive environment in the place that they're training. So it took me visiting several gyms before I settled on Nova Force, and you need to find the gym with the kind of the energy and the vibe that appeals to you. So I would say don't just go to one gym and settle there. Try a few jiu-jitsu gyms and see what one you feel most at home at. Okay, you should be going to a place where when you go there, you feel happy. The people are friendly. The people are helpful. You have a good time. There's camaraderie, and after the class, people are still there wanting to help you. Places that I had visited that I avoid. Um, there were a couple of places that I went to where there were like immediately you could sense 3 or 4 cliques, groups of people, a bit of like hostility between those groups, a bit of negative competitiveness. And after a hard day's work, after people do what they've got to do in life, and they can then come to training, you want to somewhat unwind and have a good time. And yeah, so really take your time, pick an academy that you feel kind of is the right energy for you. Mix up your training. So if you start feeling like you're hitting a plateau, um, mix up your training. So that could involve going to other gyms again. And if your instructor really has your best interests at heart, they will be fine with you going to other gyms. I know some places frown on that, which is quite a shame. An instructor's focus should be on what's best for their student. And so that can be quite useful, mixing up your training. Also delving into other areas of jiu-jitsu that your instructor might not have that as much expertise on, that you might be very interested in. So doing your own study in areas that is of interest that can help revitalize your game. That's worked for me many times.
And the white belt journey is a very difficult journey. I was there once, and it can feel like you're suffocating and drowning the entire time, at least for a lot of people. And that's where we have a lot of people quitting. White belt is usually where most people's journey in jiu-jitsu starts and ends. And I want to encourage white belts to continue the journey. So I wanted to give you guys 3 tips if you're just starting jiu-jitsu and you're a white belt. And these tips are designed to help you continue with your journey and make it an everlasting part of your life. So the first tip would be to have fun. I think that's a very important rule. And Having fun is important because there's a reason you started jiu-jitsu. You started jiu-jitsu for probably a very personal reason. Maybe a friend introduced you to the sport and it was a way for you to spend time with your friend. Maybe you wanted to learn how to defend yourself. Maybe you wanted to just learn a new skill set so that you could say you can choke out people. Whatever the reason may be, it was personal to you. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're here and you're learning jiu-jitsu because you want to. So it's important to keep it fun. And the way to keep it fun, I think jiu-jitsu is fun because it's a puzzle. And every time you unlock or you connect a piece of that puzzle together, like a light bulb goes off. And that feeling of unlocking these puzzles as you go through your journey is what makes jiu-jitsu so appealing. That reward that you get at the end from your hard work is what keeps jiu-jitsu fun. So keep learning, keep an open mind, and try to focus on the techniques that you love to do. Because that's what's going to keep it fun. Because if you focus on the techniques that you love to do, you're going to try them during your role. So you're going to be able to troubleshoot them and you're going to start executing them eventually. And when you do, it's going to be a very, very good feeling. And just keep moving through those movements that you just love to do and latch onto them for dear life and only focus on those. Because as a white belt, there's a lot of information coming at you. And just focus on the things that you absolutely love and just let everything else fall to the side. Having said that, I remember the Bruce Lee quote, "I fear not the man who has done 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has done one kick 10,000 times." So this is right at your white belt journey. This is where you're going to start implementing that philosophy. So the second tip that I would give white belts is to drill. Rolling is fun. So, just going back to tip number one, rolling is fun. But at white belt, you don't know anything. And the only way you're going to get better and the only way you're going to start having more fun is if you start drilling. Okay? You've got to spend the hours and slow things down to really understand the techniques that are being taught to you. So those few techniques that you love to do, drill them. Drill them and drill them and drill them. And then as you master those techniques, then you can start linking other techniques to your main bread and butter. Third tip, finally, is to embrace the suck. Okay, because there's no sugarcoating what it means to be a white belt. When you're a white belt, you're going to get smashed, you're going to get suffocated, you're going to get choked, you're going to get subbed, you're going to get swept. You're going to be on the receiving end of terribleness, okay? It's going to feel like you can't breathe. You're going to be out of breath because you're not efficient with your movements, because you don't have the techniques to deal with the upper belts, and it's going to suck, okay? I can't tell you how many nights I've driven home on the verge of tears or actually crying because, it sucks. It's not fun sometimes. And it's not fun because ultimately your ego gets in the way. And your ego tells you, that shouldn't have happened. You should do better. Like, why is this person who's smaller than me getting the upper hand? So you really got to swallow your pride and embrace the suck, because nothing worth having comes easy. And as I said before, in our current society and culture of, getting things easy and wanting instant gratification, learning something like a martial art can be really outside of your wheelhouse. It's something that you're not used to. Mastery comes at that cost. It comes at the cost of being the nail for like 90% of your journey. And that's going to make you so much better. It's going to make you more resilient, not only in jiu-jitsu, but in other parts of your life. Understand that there are people out there that will beat you up, but that doesn't stop you in improving yourself and continuing on your own journey.
I think the first thing is to make sure that you're at a club that you will enjoy being at. Jiu-Jitsu is a long journey. I think another thing to think about is obviously making sure that you focus on basic techniques and make sure you understand the fundamentals, the concepts behind those techniques, and look to apply them as soon as you can. Another thing to think about is making sure that you continue to relax and breathe through your jiu-jitsu journey. I think one of the first things that beginners do is focus too much or rely too much on strength. Relax, learn to breathe, and get used to being in uncomfortable positions, because unfortunately, as a beginner, you will be spending a lot of time on your back. So getting used to being on your back and understanding the techniques and the positions from your back will help you in the long run. Jiu-Jitsu is a tough martial art and it requires patience.